I was standing in my kitchen, wiping spilled cereal off the counter when the phone rang. I almost ignored it. My baby had cried all night, my head was throbbing, my 4-year-old had refused breakfast again. In that moment, my biggest problem felt both tiny and overwhelming. Then a voice on the line made my hands freeze. "Amelia Carter, you need to listen carefully. The woman with your husband right now, she is not you." I pressed my back against the counter, suddenly unsure if my legs would hold me. "I'm sorry, who is this?" I asked, trying to keep my voice calm while my heart raced. "This is Claire Dawson. I work at Oakwood Bank downtown branch. You helped me years ago. You may not remember, but I did. Your husband is here. He's in a private office. The woman beside him wears your coat, carries your bag, and showed your ID. Her laugh was nothing like mine." "That can't be true. My husband is supposed to be on a business trip. He left yesterday morning." There was a pause long enough to make my chest tighten. "Amelia," she said quietly, "I know you. I see you often. This is not you." "They're trying to take everything," she continued. "Your accounts, your properties, even your father is with them, signing as a witness." The room swayed. In that moment, I realized something I didn't yet have words for. While I was busy surviving daily life, someone was quietly dismantling it, and I had no clue how close I was to losing it all. Before I became the woman wiping spilled cereal off the kitchen counter, I was someone else entirely. My name is Amelia Carter, and I used to be a corporate financial consultant. The kind who stayed late because I loved solving problems. The kind who could read a financial report and spot discrepancies others overlooked. At the firm, they joked I had X-ray vision. I could see fraud buried beneath neat numbers and confident signatures. I wore tailored suits, walked into meetings without hesitation, and when I spoke, people listened. I earned my own money, paid my rent, and chose my life. Then I fell in love. The words lingered in my mind like smoke I couldn't shake. "That woman with your husband right now is not you." My legs refused to hold me, and I slid against the counter, breath shallow, heart hammering. How could this even be possible? Ethan, my husband, supposedly on a week-long business trip, sitting in a bank conference room with a woman who mirrored me like a cruel reflection. My thoughts collided, fragmented, jumping from disbelief to fear. I had to see it for myself. I hung up with Nina Brooks, my mind racing faster than my fingers could dial again. I had known her for years, a polite face at Harbor City Bank, someone I had once helped uncover fraud long ago. Back then, she smiled at me with gratitude, brief and professional. But now, her voice carried urgency, a quiet terror that made me realize this was far from ordinary. Before this moment, I had lived a life that now felt like someone else's memory. My days were defined by routines, the children's breakfast, nap schedules, laundry, the endless swirl of dishes and crumbs. And yet, beneath the mundane, I had been someone different, someone sharp, meticulous, unyielding. My name is Claire Harrison, and once I had been a forensic accountant, known for spotting irregularities in numbers that others missed entirely. I wore structured blazers, carried leather-bound notebooks, and navigated boardrooms with poise. People listened when I spoke because I knew things they didn't, could see patterns they overlooked. Ethan's admiration had felt intoxicating at first. He praised my intelligence, my precision, my drive. I had believed him. But as the months passed, compliments turned into gentle nudges. "Relax, you don't need to handle this anymore. I've got everything under control." Small interventions that seemed like love, care, support. And slowly, imperceptibly, my world shrank. My emails went unanswered. My projects stalled. I stopped attending conferences, stopped following financial trends, stopped caring about the sharp suits that once gave me armor. Each day, I told myself it was temporary. I could return to my old life. But life has a way of closing doors quietly, one hinge at a time. The exhaustion wasn't just physical, it was strategic. It made me compliant, made me defer to his judgment, made me believe that asking questions was selfish. And in those quiet hours, while I played the part of the devoted wife and mother, Ethan had begun laying a parallel life, a life where my identity could be erased without notice, replaced by a carefully constructed duplicate. I tried to remember when it began, when the subtle shifts took root. A misplaced jacket here, a missing handbag there, small things I brushed off. But each trivial disappearance was a brick in a wall I didn't see forming. My mother began asking questions, under the guise of concern. Are you sleeping enough? Do you feel drained? I thought she worried about me. I didn't realize she was noticing the cracks, gathering clues. And now I needed clarity. I couldn't rely on memory or suspicion. I had to see evidence. My analytical mind, buried under years of domestic routine, began to stir. The Claire Harrison who once spotted embezzlement before it ever made the news began to resurface. This wasn't paranoia, it was pattern recognition, deduction. I needed access, documentation, verification. And I needed to confront the illusion that Ethan had constructed so meticulously around my life. Somewhere between fear and rage, I realized that survival alone wasn't enough. I had to reclaim my life piece by piece, but first I had to step into the room and see the truth laid bare, unfiltered, undeniable. I left my children with a trusted neighbor, barely pausing to kiss their foreheads. Every step toward the downtown branch felt surreal, like walking through someone else's memory. My heart raced, not just from fear, but from anticipation. I needed to see the truth myself, to confront the person who had dared to step into my life with such precision. Nina met me at the back entrance, her face pale but resolute. "Follow me," she whispered, guiding me through a narrow corridor that smelled of old coffee and antiseptic. The hum of security monitors accompanied our footsteps, the flickering lights casting shadows that seemed to mimic my inner unrest. My hands trembled, but I forced them to remain still. The world I had known, the identity I thought was secure, was slipping through my fingers. We reached a small observation room filled with screens, and then I saw him, Ethan, calm, confident, like he owned every square inch of the world around him. Beside him, the woman, my reflection twisted into someone else's shape, sat with my coat draped over her shoulders, my bag at her side. She moved with a practiced grace, rehearsed gestures that mimicked my mannerisms. Even from a distance, her presence was unsettlingly familiar, a perverse echo of who I had been. And there was my mother, seated across from them, signing papers methodically. Her hands shook slightly, betraying the composure she tried to maintain. My chest tightened. My mother, the woman who had taught me to stand tall, now seemed caught between loyalty and deception. Beside her, Ethan's sister organized documents with a precision that only someone who truly understood office work could muster. The image of them all, aligned against me in this orchestrated theater, was almost too much to bear. But instead of panic, something else surged within me. Focus. The Claire Harrison who had once unearthed financial schemes with surgical precision resurfaced in my consciousness. My hands unclenched, my breath steadied. I began scanning the monitors, observing every subtle motion, every exchanged glance, every piece of evidence that betrayed the plot against me. Every transaction, every signature, every minute detail that Ethan assumed would remain invisible to me was now a beacon guiding my strategy. I instructed Nina to pull transaction histories for the past 3 years, every account, every asset, every power of attorney filed in my name. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, ready to dissect, calculate, and cross-reference. As the numbers populated, a picture emerged. Thousands here, tens of thousands there, carefully orchestrated to evade immediate detection. Over $900,000 had been funneled into accounts beyond my reach. Loans had been taken, insurance beneficiaries altered, properties leveraged, all without my knowledge. As I processed the evidence, flashes of my past life intertwined with the present. The woman I had been, a meticulous professional, a problem solver, someone who could read a balance sheet like an open book, reclaimed its place in my consciousness. The years of domestic monotony, the subtle erosion of my independence, all fell away, leaving clarity. I realized that exhaustion had been my cage, and now that cage was within reach of being dismantled. Each detail, each financial maneuver, each forged signature became a thread I could pull, unraveling the web Ethan had woven. I wasn't just witnessing betrayal, I was gathering the tools for accountability, the evidence that would return what was mine and expose the lies carefully layered over the past years. And through it all, a single thought anchored me. The Claire Harrison who had vanished quietly into domesticity was gone. This new clarity, this resurgence of skill and instinct was my armor, my strategy, and it was time to strike. The screens flickered, reflecting both my fear and my resolve. Ethan leaned toward the woman in my coat, his hand resting on her back in that familiar, possessive way, the way he used to touch me when he believed I was his only audience. I swallowed the sudden wave of anger and betrayal, focusing on the numbers, the dates, the transactions. This was not just about infidelity, it was about theft, deception, and the systematic erasure of my life. Nina returned with thick folders, each page brimming with evidence. I picked up a pencil, my hands moving with precision I hadn't felt in years. Calculations, cross-references, footnotes, each line confirming the nightmare I had feared. Loans taken under my name, properties sold without consent, insurance policies manipulated. The system had been gamed, and I had been the unwitting player. Yet with every revelation, a part of me calmed. The chaos had a pattern, and patterns could be unraveled. I called my former colleague, someone I trusted to verify company filings and legal documents. Within minutes, confirmation arrived. Ethan's businesses were teetering on the edge of bankruptcy, lawsuits pending, creditors circling like vultures. Everything he had built was a house of cards, and he had been hiding it while placing the burden squarely on me. My blood boiled, not with blind rage, but with a calculated awareness of the power I now held. I glanced again at the screen. The woman wearing my coat fidgeted, unaware that the armor I had built around my mind was already shielding me from panic. My mother's eyes met mine in the monitor, a flicker of doubt, a shadow of realization crossing her face. The betrayal cut deep, but it also revealed her complicity, or at least her ignorance. I had to confront both, and I had to be methodical. The first step was exposure. Every signature, every transaction, every document had to be accounted for. Nina helped me compile timelines, legal evidence, and financial records. Each page confirmed the meticulousness of the plot against me, and yet with every revelation I felt a strange empowerment. The Claire Harrison who once solved corporate fraud with a meticulous eye was no longer buried under domestic exhaustion. She was awake, sharp, ready. We devised a plan. I would confront them at the bank, not with emotion, but with irrefutable evidence. Ethan had assumed my exhaustion made me compliant. He believed that silence was submission, but I had reclaimed my mind, and silence was no longer an option.
The woman posing as me would be revealed, my mother would be made aware of the deception, and every transaction would be brought into the light. I also knew timing was critical. Ethan's confidence was built on predictability. He would assume that I was overwhelmed, tired, compliant. But the very act of showing up unannounced, armed with facts, would shatter his narrative. Each step of my plan had to be precise. Entrances, verification, exposure. And above all, I had to remain calm. My old self, analytical, observant, strategic, was my greatest weapon. Standing in the observation room, I watched Ethan laugh casually at something the woman said. I imagined stepping into the conference room, unraveling the illusion, showing the world that the woman he thought could replace me was nothing more than a costume, a prop in his carefully orchestrated drama. This was the moment I had been preparing for, unconsciously, for years. For the first time in a long while, fear was replaced with purpose. Every deception, every subtle manipulation, every act designed to erase me would now be countered with clarity, evidence, and strategy. The exhaustion that had once kept me compliant was gone, and the realization hit me like a jolt. This was not just a fight for assets, it was a fight for identity, for truth, for justice. I turned to Nina. "Everything has to be ready," I said, voice steady. "I want the complete history, the files, the documents. Nothing can be missing. We expose everything." She nodded, understanding the stakes, understanding that the woman I once was had returned, and she was sharper than ever.
I took a deep breath and stepped out of the observation room. The hallway felt narrower than I remembered, shadows stretching along the walls, but my resolve was unshakable. My mother and Nina flanked me, each aware of their roles. This was no longer about fear. It was about precision, exposure, and reclaiming what had been stolen from me. The conference room door loomed ahead. Inside, Ethan sat confidently, unaware that the narrative he had built for 3 years was about to collapse. The woman in my coat smiled nervously, clutching my bag as though it could shield her from the truth. Rachel, Ethan's sister, shuffled papers without noticing my approach. The scene looked normal from the outside, but I could see the cracks forming under the surface. I pushed the door open slowly. Silence fell immediately. Ethan froze mid-sentence, phone in hand. The sound of the door echoed, sharp, like a gavel in a courtroom. My mother's eyes widened behind me, Nina stood firm, and I stepped into the room fully, owning every inch of my presence. "Ealing," I said, calmly, voice steady. "How was your business trip?" The words landed heavy. His confident facade wavered just slightly, and the woman in my coat flinched. She was no longer the perfect copy of me. She was just another player in his deception. I picked up a folder from the table. "General power of attorney," I read aloud. "Authorization to liquidate my accounts, sell my properties, make decisions in my name. Can you explain why another woman is signing these documents?" Ethan stammered, searching for words, any excuse. His usual control was gone. His panic was subtle, but it was there. Nina stepped forward, placing files and transaction histories on the table. Every loan, transfer, and property sale traced in my name was documented. "Everything here is verified," she said. "You have no grounds to claim ignorance." I watched Ethan's face blanch as the weight of his own actions settled on him. The woman in my coat tried to maintain composure, but without the illusion, her act crumbled. My mother approached the table, touching the documents, realization dawning in her eyes. She had been misled, manipulated, or perhaps complicit in her ignorance. The shame was visible, but it was not my burden to carry anymore. I walked closer to Ethan. Every inch of calm, collected power that I had regained radiated from me. "This ends now," I said firmly. "You've used deception to protect yourself for too long. The truth is here, and no amount of lies can rewrite it." His attempts to explain, to mitigate, fell flat. The evidence was undeniable. Police officers arrived quietly, professional, calm. No sirens, no chaos, just the precision of accountability. Ethan was instructed to stand, rights read aloud, his authority evaporating in the face of the law and undeniable proof. Rachel followed, protesting, but the documentation made it clear. This was not negotiation. This was consequence. I turned to my mother, placing a hand gently on hers. "It's okay now," I whispered. She nodded, tears spilling silently. The woman who had been a pawn stepped aside, her role dissolved under the weight of the truth. For the first time in years, I breathed freely. Every step had been calculated, every action precise, and yet it felt like reclamation, not victory. I was no longer the woman silenced, exhausted, erased. I was Claire Harrison again, observant, analytical, indomitable. The house of lies had crumbled, and I stood at the center, clear-eyed and unbroken. The journey ahead was uncertain. Rebuilding trust, restoring security, and reconnecting with my children would take time, but one truth remained undeniable. I had refused to disappear quietly. I had reclaimed my life, my identity, and my power, one deliberate step at a time. After the courtroom drama ended and the police had taken Ethan and Rachel away, I walked home quietly. The streets were familiar yet unfamiliar, each step reminding me how long I had been missing pieces of my own life. My children ran to greet me, their laughter unburdened by deceit, unaware of the storm that had just passed. I held them close, inhaling the scent of home and safety. Sitting down at the kitchen table, I reflected on everything: the lost years, the subtle manipulations, the exhaustion that had dulled my instincts. But I also recognized the strength I had rediscovered. Life had tested me, tried to erase me, and pushed me to my limits, yet here I was, standing tall, aware of my own worth, capable of making decisions, and ready to move forward. I want anyone watching this to understand something crucial. If you've ever felt controlled, manipulated, or slowly pushed out of your own life, you are not powerless. You are not weak. You are tired, yes, but that exhaustion is not the end of your story. There will come a moment when clarity hits, when you remember who you are and what you deserve, and in that moment you must act, not for revenge, but for yourself, for your family, for your life. Don't wait until the damage is done. Notice the subtle signs, trust your instincts, and reclaim your voice before someone else writes your story for you. Protect your finances, your identity, and your sense of self. Stand firm, ask questions, be vigilant, and if something feels wrong, investigate. The smallest actions now can prevent a lifetime of regret later. When you feel beaten down, exhausted, or erased, remember, your value is not diminished by someone else's deception. Take control, seek support, and demand the truth. Life is not about revenge. Real power comes from walking away with your mind clear, your family safe, and your dignity intact. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever experienced betrayal, manipulation, or the slow erasure of your identity, know this: you are not alone. Share this story, talk about it with someone you trust, and use it as a reminder that strength is built in moments of clarity and courage. No one can erase you unless you allow it, and when the time comes, you will find the strength to reclaim everything that belongs to you. Stand up, be vigilant, and never underestimate the power of awareness and action.